Welcome to One Big Boat. We're all in this together. A show focused on people and organizations whose work is making a true difference in people's lives. Today, we welcome Andrew McCauley, the President and Executive Officer of the New England Home and Center for Veterans.
What we need to do effectively, and I think our team does well, is that connecting with the need.
He's on board to talk about how they meet and service veterans who are going through some challenging times. That's next on One Big Boat. We're all in this together. You had a pretty distinguished career before you came to the New England Center and Home for Veterans. One where you might be able to retire and just, have a nice life, a very relaxed life. Why do you do what you do?
Well, I might take exception or maybe redefine the adjective used was distinguished. I certainly was honored to be able to serve in the United States Navy, and I think it afforded me some incredible opportunities, certainly some excitement, a way to support my family, and I think it provided me a lot of benefits. I'm not sure I would characterize it as distinguished. My career in the Navy, actually probably ultimately ended before I would have chosen to, but that was because of some personal family exigencies. And I was, not even in my 50s yet. I was still in my late 40s. I still had to provide for my family, so I obviously had to do something else. So I started on what someone might say would be a second career, or just continue my professional, working life. That initially was in the aerospace and defense business, but again, family exigencies required me to be here in the Boston area, where I'm from and where my children were living at the time, and where my family was, and I needed to be there. So it was entirely serendipitous that I actually was approached by the board of directors of the New England Center and asked if I might be interested in having a role there. And of course, that was serendipity. So, and now I've been there over 14 years, and it's been an incredibly rewarding, demanding, eye-opening, and educational. And once again, maybe a lot like the time I spent, in the Navy. It's been an honor to be part of it.
What keeps you going back every day? Like what, I ask this question sometimes, like your kindergarten moment. If you have a kindergartner, right, they come home and they're like, hey, I met my best friend Bob today, and we finger painted, what are those moments for you where you just are overjoyed because of your job?
So that's two different questions. One is what makes me go back every day, and the other one is what are the parts of my job that make me overjoyed. Well, I probably go back because I'm routinized by, like a lot of people. I get up, that's my routine, and I do think, it is a reason to get out of bed. It's a reason to give some, significant professional, meaning, and sort of purpose to what I'm doing. I think it's the people ultimately that you're working with. I do believe that, veterans may be no more deserving than other people in our very diverse and very rich society are they're maybe no more deserving of the support and services that we provide to them, but I think they are especially deserving, and I have, I guess, maybe somewhat of a kinship. It's a human endeavor. Ultimately, the center is a group of about 150 dedicated people serving, supporting, and helping and assisting other people.
What are the challenges you have? Well, let's talk now. I mean, are there new challenges because of federal cuts? What's going,
We always have challenges. I mean, we always have challenges, and we are always, can sometimes feel as if we are limited by the resources that we have. Ultimately, I think the most complicated aspect of what the center does is rooted in and connected to the complexity of the human condition. The center served almost 1,700 veterans and family members last year, and that's 1,700 different, sometimes very complex sets of circumstances, and there's no clear answers, and people may be struggling with challenges, and our role is to help them. You talk specifically about the federal government and resources there. We actually are very strongly resourced by our government partners, federal government, primarily, but not solely, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, but by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts funding through the legislature and the Executive Office of veteran services here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as, and maybe most relevant here is the really generous support we get from our partners and supporters in the community, that their philanthropic giving that really allows us to be so flexible and I think excellent at what the center does.
Yeah. Maybe you talk about like how outreach. People may not realize, they may think people just come to you. Mm-hmm. But you guys are going out there and actively looking for those veterans that may be homeless.
That's a really great point. And I think there's a lot of, you can unwind that and peel that back and talk about that a little bit. I would describe outreach as connecting with the need. Veterans are just people. I mean, there's somewhere between 15 and 20 million veterans, here in the United States, people who have served in the military. Most of them do not need our services. We provide service to vulnerable veterans, folks who find themselves in crises. And one thing, veterans, again, are just people, but I think one frequent characteristic that they exhibit is a reluctance to raise their hand and say, I'm in trouble, I need some help, I can't do this myself. And that's why, until just recently, veterans were overrepresented in the population of people in this country who are experiencing homelessness, because even though the services and the benefits might have been available to them, but they were unwilling to necessarily connect with it and stay connected. They felt like maybe they didn't want to do that. So what we need to do effectively, and I think our team does well, is that connecting with the need, which means, you say looking for or searching for veterans. We're not really, but we're present in the community, connected to networks of agencies, communities, people, so that veterans who may be experiencing some challenges know that we're there, and then we proactively connect with them.
Coming up.
See, I don't like to use the S word, so we're not a shelter.
Sorry.
But that's okay. That there's actually nothing wrong with that, but the goal for us is to be something more than that.
We talk about all they do for the veterans they serve. So is there, and I've talked to you about this before, and you always come back to the human condition, veterans are human. What is it about, though, that is there a difference because somebody's homeless and they're a veteran, or is it just, is it not? Is it the same as any homeless shelter, I guess?
See, I don't like to use the S word, so we're not a shelter.
Sorry.
But that's okay. That there's actually nothing wrong with that, but the goal for us is to be something more than that. The center was founded as a shelter for Vietnam veterans specifically experiencing homelessness. And we've certainly tried to get out of the homelessness business by being in the human services business more effectively. But people do experience homelessness. And veterans, again, until very recently, experienced homelessness at a higher rate. They were overrepresented than the general population. And I think that was because of their reluctance to reach out and be connected to services. So we do see that veterans do identify. I mean, I'm a veteran. It's not the only way I identify. I identify as a bicycle rider, or as a parent, or as a Red Sox fan. But I also do identify as a veteran. We do find that veterans they're proud of their service, whether it was for a month, a year, a decade, or longer. They are proud and they want to identify as a veteran. And I think there's a shared experience among veterans, so they're more likely to seek out and connect with veterans, and also as a veteran serving organization, and we serve solely veterans, and that's anybody who's raised their right hand. So there isn't an eligibility criteria beyond that, whereas there are for other specific veterans, whether at the federal level. But veterans are also have that connection across generations, and they support each other.
How are you guys growing now? I mean, you're taking, I don't want to say ownership because I don't know if that's the correct word, but you're going to be running the behavioral facility.
So ownership is actually ultimately the correct term. It's a process. We have expanded our physical infrastructure, and I think that this is a positive thing, and it's an inevitable as the number of veterans in this country is shrinking. It's shrinking here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It's shrinking all over the country. Still lots and lots of veterans, but it becomes more diffuse. And so consolidation among providers for efficiencies of scale are inevitable, and I think a positive element. At the same time, we have to be in the community. So those two things can be at odds if you don't do it with some sophistication and subtlety. But we have executed a service consolidation with a partner agency specifically headquartered and providing services to veterans similar to ours in the Merrimack Valley region of Massachusetts. And so that will, in that process, and it'll probably take a couple of years, we will gain ownership of some of their existing properties, both veteran service outlets and veteran housing developments, so that we'll be able to better provide and continue the services to the veterans in that area.
Yeah. What do you have, like a 5-year goal? Is it, and it's not a shelter, but you want to give them housing. So what, like in 5-10 years, what would be ultimate for you at New England Center?
Well, I think that the center has continued to evolve, and I think that's important to meet the changing need of the veterans we serve. Now, again, if we define the veterans we serve the most vulnerable, the veterans. And we don't say we serve homeless veterans. We serve veterans who are experiencing significant challenges that without adequate and appropriate available services would find themselves homeless. And so the idea is that's the population that we serve, which is a small part of the veteran population, but it's not a small number of folks. And so as those needs change, like that population is getting mostly advanced in years. Not everybody, but overall it's advanced, the particular services that are necessary to make sure that we can safely and effectively serve them and get them into a sustainable, dignified, independent living circumstance so they can live independently, successfully, changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we do some work with you guys, and we love these videos we work on. And I've interviewed a lot of amazing people who work with you. And one of the things that they said to me last year that I was surprised about is that they're seeing older population, like people in their 70s, couples in their 70s who are now on the edge. And that was surprising to them. Is that what we're talking about when we're talking about the changes in this population that you're seeing?
That's a part of it. That is a part of it. One example is we've completed 2 of 3 stages of our transitional housing reconfiguration project. But when we did our full renovation and recapitalization now a decade ago, I mean, there's always the balance. We wanted to make sure we had sufficient capacity so that we didn't have to turn people away, and we ended up with probably just short of 200 transitional beds for veterans who are actually in crisis and didn't have a place to live. So actually we're experiencing homelessness. And the goal was then that they would come and reside in one of our types of dormitories, which are transitional programs. And they were in a variety of different configurations, but the majority were for male veterans, and the majority were in a bunk bed configuration, which is a very space-efficient way to make sure we have sufficient capacity. But as the population that was experiencing it and were coming to us for services aged, so that not everybody was older, but as a group they were older and had more mobility challenges and more medical comorbidities and complexities, we needed to reconfigure so that we have beds and accommodations that could support that population. So same thing as if a veteran is in their 30s or 40s or even 50s, the needs that they have for long-term sustainable housing is going to be different from a veteran who is in their 60s or 70s and may have mobility issues. They may start having to have the requirement to have some assistance with activities of daily living. That's what we have to think about as well.
Yeah. Where does your funding come from the private sector?
So our private funding, which is a smaller but very, very vital portion, comes from individuals, foundations, and corporations. I mean, that's the sort of three character or categories of philanthropic sources that there are in the community. Generous people who are committed to our mission and support us very generously. Foundations that want to support what we do, and also our business partners.
Well, we have one connection with a gentleman by the name of Adam Ezra and his music festival. And that's going to be coming up. It's always at the end of August. So whenever you're watching or hearing this, you'll know, look for the Ramble. But that's a pretty significant, it's a nice outreach.
So Adam Ezra, I might actually have to add a fourth category beyond individuals, foundations, and corporations, maybe forces of nature. So I think Adam could be characterized, he and the folks that work with him and support him and really collaborate to support us, the Rally Sound folks that through the Ramble and other things, I think Adam could be, and they could be characterized as a force of nature. So it's not one individual, it's all the folks in that endeavor and all the folks that support us, attend the Ramble and support the Ramble, and so that becomes maybe a force multiplier, as we would say in the military. It's just a force.
There's so much that you do. What do you want people to know if they're walking away from this interview? Like, what would be the one main thing that you want them to focus on?
I think the idea that the New England Center and Home for Veterans supports any and all veterans who are in need, and we're doing it on their behalf. The United States has made a pledge, I think a solemn vow, to support people who have raised their right hand and volunteered or signed up to be in the military, potentially giving their all, in defense of our freedoms and our way of life and our interests around the world. And the country has made a pledge that says, if you do that, we will support you. We will support you regardless of the circumstances for the rest of your life. And so that's done through a variety of ways, through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, through government, through public, but we're doing that on behalf of everybody in the United States to support veterans.
Thank you very much for coming in and talking to me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Take care.
One Big Boat is a production of Last Minute Productions Incorporated. This episode was produced by me, Jay Dobeck. Ethan Gallo was the sound engineer. Jim Johnson and Ryan Macheski provided production support. And Joanne Pilata is the production coordinator.